I stared at my screen, rereading the group chat messages I was never meant to see. Someone, probably Mason's assistant who still felt guilty about how I'd been treated, had sent me the screenshots anonymously. Mason meeting at 3 p.m. tomorrow to finalize the Cloud Ridge deal. Boardroom B, Delia, should we loop in Tessa? Delia, why? She's not actually one of us. Mason, exactly, she'd probably just derail the whole thing. Remember when she tried to talk about employee equity? Delia, total joke, she doesn't get how real business works. I set the phone down slowly, my fingers tightening. The irony was almost laughable. Because I was reading their texts? From my office. At the top floor of Cloud Ridge Systems' San Francisco headquarters. As its founder and majority shareholder. For nearly 4 years I'd operated under a pseudonym, quietly building one of the West Coast's fastest-growing SaaS companies. The tech press called me an enigma, investors called me a genius, my stepfamily still called me irrelevant. They had no idea. It all began when I was 16. My dad remarried a finance executive named Angela Barrett. Sharp, polished, and cold as stone. Along with her came Mason and Delia, both older, both already basking in Ivy League privilege and startup trust funds. I was the extra, the charity case. Angela once told me I'd make a great receptionist, said it with a smile like she was doing me a favor. But I had other plans. While Mason interned at hedge funds and Delia globetrotted on networking retreats, I bartended nights and taught myself full-stack development from online boot camps. They were too busy flaunting titles to notice me laying the foundation for something bigger. And that equity idea they mocked? That was the last time I tried to bring value to Barrett Enterprises. They laughed me out of the room. 2 months later, I launched Cloud Ridge Systems. Today, they're negotiating a buyout of my company. And they still don't know who's behind it. Not yet. That vision, tech that cared for people, not just profits, became the soul of Cloud Ridge Systems. Within a year, we'd taken the Barrett Pharmaceuticals contract right out from under Angela's nose. Within 3 years, we were their fiercest competition. And now, after months of quiet acquisitions and strategic investor buyouts, I was about to do what once seemed unthinkable. Buy Barrett Enterprises outright. Their empire was crumbling. Decades of profit-driven leadership, out-of-touch policies, and public scandals had left them grasping for relevance. Their valuation had plummeted. Their largest clients were jumping ship. And the board? Desperate. Enter Cloud Ridge Systems, offering a buyout that looked like salvation. The only catch? The mysterious CEO, known only as T. Ellison, refused to attend meetings in person. Negotiations had to go through intermediaries. The Barretts never questioned it. They thought they were about to be rescued by a middle-aged tech mogul with deep pockets and no history. They had no idea. My computer pinged. A calendar reminder. Barrett Enterprises board meeting, 3:00 p.m. I had my assistant book it weeks ago, knowing full well Mason and Delia had already blocked that exact time for their private Cloud Ridge deal discussion. They thought they were about to impress a new partner. They were about to meet their boss. I opened my drawer and pulled out a photo. Me at 16, standing beside my dad the day we hiked the Marin Headlands. He passed away 2 years later from a stroke, leaving me with nothing but memories and a stepmother eager to erase his existence. Angela absorbed his modest consulting firm into her empire and shut me out completely. "You're grown now," she'd said, not long after his funeral. "Time to find your own path." So I did. And now, I was buying the house she built. I tapped my headset. "Elena, are we ready?" "Yes, Miss Ellison," she replied. "Legal's on standby. Their board just needs to sign. And Mason and Delia still think T. Ellison is some old Silicon Valley recluse." I smiled. They'd swooned over a Forbes profile we planted last year. An older man, wise and reserved. Exactly their idea of power. "Good," I said. "Make sure the boardroom camera's rolling. I want their reactions documented." Then I stepped into the private bathroom. The woman in the mirror was unrecognizable from the teenager they once dismissed. Straight posture, impeccable suit, hair smooth, smile steady. Let's show them who I've become. The final piece of the illusion slid into place. a pair of sleek designer glasses. I didn't need them, but they softened my features just enough. For anyone who hadn't seen me since I was a teenager, I'd be just another polished executive. Mrs. Ellison. Elena's voice came through the intercom, calm and efficient. The Barrett siblings have arrived. They're in boardroom 3B. And the camera? Live feed is running. Would you like to watch? I tapped my laptop and opened the stream. Mason and Delia Barrett, still smug, still dressed like they walked out of a luxury brand catalog. Mason was scrolling through something on his phone, showing Delia with a smirk. She laughed. Sharp, fake, familiar. Can you believe Tessa actually applied for a job here? Mason said. As a product manager, like Cloudridge would hire someone like that. Delia snorted. Did you see the resume? San Jose State? Please. I heard she's stuck writing code for some nobody startup. Pathetic. I didn't flinch. Because they were supposed to say that. I wanted them to. That resume was mine. A fabricated identity. An outdated photo. Carefully planted bait. I'd known they'd mock it. They thought I wanted in. They had no idea I'd already built the house. I checked the clock. 2:25 p.m. Almost showtime. Elena, I said into the mic, please let the Barretts know the meeting will begin a few minutes early, and when you announce me, refer to me as Miss Ellison. I stood, straightening the lapels of my black suit. I gathered the folders with the final documents. 15 years of being dismissed, pushed out, called a disappointment, of watching them waste every opportunity they were handed, it all led to this room, this moment. I thought of my father, how proud he'd been when I built my first app at 13, how he told me that success wasn't about inheritance, it was about resilience, about building something from nothing. Ready when you are, Ms. Ellison, Elena said. I took one last glance in the mirror, adjusted my glasses, picked up the documents. And I walked toward boardroom 3B. Each click of my heels on the marble felt like justice. Through the glass, I saw Mason and Delia still laughing. Still comfortable. Still clueless. Elena stood by the door, composed as ever, one hand on the handle. She had been with me since the early Cloudridge days, one of the very few who knew everything. Shall I announce you? She asked softly. I nodded. Let's begin. If you're ready to see what happens when the masks come off and the truth takes the boardroom by storm, don't forget to subscribe. The next chapter is one you won't want to miss. I nodded once, steadying my breath as the memories sharpened into fuel. Every time they excluded me, every time they laughed, every time they made me feel invisible, Elena opened the door with a slight, knowing smile. Mr. and Ms. Barrett, allow me to introduce T. Ellison, CEO of Cloudridge Systems. I stepped into boardroom 3B, heels clicking against the marble. Mason and Delia's expressions shifted instantly, from polite anticipation to confusion, and then to unmistakable horror. Hello, Mason, Delia. I smiled, deliberately echoing Angela Barrett's old, razor-sharp tone. Shall we discuss the future of Barrett Enterprises? The silence was delicious. I counted exactly 12 seconds before Mason's mouth parted in disbelief. Tessa? Delia choked out. Is this some kind of prank? I calmly set my folders at the head of the table, the chair that once belonged to their father. No prank. I gave a small, measured smile. Although your comments earlier about my resume were very entertaining. Mason found his voice, but it cracked under the weight of it all. You can't be T. Ellison, you're just a failure, I said, arching an eyebrow. No, just someone who spent years working while you wasted your inheritance. I opened the first folder casually. Now, to the terms. Cloudridge Systems will acquire Barrett Enterprises for $2,400,000,000, 0 cents. Select divisions will be integrated, executive leadership will be restructured, starting today. Delia slammed her hand against the table, her bracelet clinking sharply. You lied to everyone, pretended to be someone else. No, I said simply. I protected my privacy. I built something real, something that wasn't handed to me. I held her gaze until she looked away. Appearance isn't everything, Delia. Substance wins. Mason's fists clenched. Mom's going to hear about this. The board already signed off, I interrupted smoothly. Angela included. She just didn't know whose offer she was signing. A slow smile crossed my lips. I look forward to seeing her face too. I could almost hear the gears grinding in their heads, the calculations, the fear. They knew it was over. What do you want from us? Delia asked finally, voice tight. Want? I leaned back in the chair, perfectly calm. I already have it. Ownership, control, legacy. I flipped open another folder. Now, let's talk about your severance packages. Though there are a few staffing adjustments I'd like to discuss, I said, coolly. Mason's face drained of color. You're firing us? Not quite. I slid two neatly prepared documents across the table. I'm offering you both positions more aligned with your actual competencies. Mason, you'll transition to Assistant Director of Client Relations. Delia, Junior Project Coordinator. Significant salary reductions, of course, but you'll be eligible for the employee wellness and benefits package you mocked years ago. Delia's jaw dropped. This is insane. We're not accepting that. It's your choice. I kept my voice level, unemotional. You're welcome to seek employment elsewhere. Just keep in mind your non-compete clauses are still active. And with Barrett Enterprises no longer independent, well, opportunities may be limited. Mason slumped back into his chair, eyes unfocused. You've been planning this for years, haven't you? Not planning, just working. While you were coasting, I was building something that mattered. Now I'm giving you a choice I never had. I stood, straightened my jacket, and gathered my folders. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to decide. If you accept, HR will onboard you. If not, security will escort you out. I turned to leave when Delia's voice called after me, brittle and desperate. Wait, what about Mom? What are you going to do to her? I paused at the door. Angela made her decisions 15 years ago. Now she'll face the outcome. I glanced over my shoulder. Oh, and don't bother warning her, she's already in a board meeting, one where she's about to meet T. Ellison for the first time. The second meeting of the day was already in motion. Held in the largest conference suite on the top floor, with full glass walls and a panoramic view of the bay. I saw Angela seated at the center, radiant as ever, her posture sharp, her eyes scanning confidently, no doubt already scheming how to charm the mysterious CEO into letting her stay. Eleni was waiting outside. They're all ready for you, Miss Ellison. Should I announce you? No, I said quietly, smiling. I think I'll do this one myself. I stepped into the room and watched as Angela Barrett's flawless expression finally cracked. Good afternoon, I said to the room, but my eyes never left Angela Barrett. I'm Tessa Ellison, CEO of Cloudridge Systems, though some of you may remember me as Tessa Grayson. The room stilled. Angela's composure faltered just slightly, enough for me to notice. The next hour, a masterclass in quiet corporate reckoning. I laid out Cloudridge's vision for Barrett Enterprises, modernization across systems, full integration into our tech ecosystem, and a restructured leadership model with an emphasis on merit, equity, and employee well-being. Angela sat motionless, lips drawn tight, as I carefully rewrote everything she'd spent years building, from the top-down culture of entitlement to the archaic benefits policy that left employees behind. When the meeting ended, she tried to slip away with the other board members, as if she hadn't just been publicly outmaneuvered. But I wasn't finished. Angela, I said, stopping her at the door. A moment. She turned slowly, and for the first time in 15 years I saw something in her expression I had never seen before. A fear? How? She asked quietly. How did I build Cloudridge? I leaned against the table. How did I buy out the company you thought I was never good enough for? Same answer. I worked for it. While you shut doors, I built new ones. She said nothing. This isn't revenge, Angela. This is justice. This is a lesson that success isn't inherited. It's earned. With grit, with purpose, with people who believe in more than image. She flinched, just slightly. So what now? She asked, voice brittle. You tear it all down? No, I make it better. Barrett Enterprises will now operate as a division of Cloudridge, focused on socially driven tech. Your legacy won't vanish, but it will evolve. She swallowed. And me? You'll keep your board seat, I replied. But as a minor shareholder, your voting power is now limited. I smiled. Consider it a lesson in humility. As she turned to go, I added casually, "Oh, and Angela, Sunday dinner? I think I'll be attending after all." The weeks that followed were a quiet storm of change. Mason and Delia took their demoted roles reluctantly, but they were learning about work, respect, and responsibility. Angela remained silent in boardrooms, but sometimes she watched me with something between suspicion and reluctant admiration. The media spun it as a revenge tale, but to me, it was restoration. The real story was in the transformation. Barrett employees finally felt seen, heard, empowered. That was the legacy I wanted. Innovation thrived. The company that once stood as a symbol of elite entitlement had transformed into a shining example of inclusive, future-forward workplace culture. 1 year after the acquisition, I sat in my corner office, overlooking the San Francisco skyline, scanning the latest quarterly reports. Barrett Enterprises, now a division of Cloud Ridge Systems, had seen a 42% increase in profits, largely driven by the employee-focused software platforms I'd envisioned years ago. And to my surprise, Mason had begun to thrive. Once he learned to listen, really listen to clients instead of talking over them, he discovered he had value beyond his last name. Delia too had found her rhythm. Structure, accountability, and actual responsibility had awakened a skill set she never knew she had. There was a knock. "Miss Ellison, your step-siblings are here for their quarterly review," Elena said. I nodded, glancing briefly out the window. The view had changed, just like we all had. "Send them in." Mason and Delia entered quietly. No designer flash, no smug grins. Just calm, focused expressions shaped by a year of learning and growth. "Please, sit." I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. "Let's talk about your progress." As we reviewed their development goals, I thought of my father. Of how he believed that true success wasn't about defeating others, but about rising into the person you were meant to become. I hadn't taken over Barrett Enterprises for revenge. I did it to prove a truth they never understood. That merit, not privilege, defines real legacy. And maybe, just maybe, by rebuilding what they once took for granted, we all became something greater than what we were. Not out of spite, but purpose. And in that, I found something better than victory. Peace. If this story struck a chord with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated, dismissed, or excluded by the people who should have supported you most? I built Cloud Ridge not just to succeed, but to prove that quiet determination beats loud entitlement every time. If you're on your own journey, remember, your value isn't defined by your past, it's built by your choices. Support the channel by subscribing, and let's keep these stories alive. You never know who needs the reminder that rising above is always possible, even when no one believes in you.